I'm extremely excited to be speaking with you today about The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. Fast! Becoming one of my favorite books of all time. Gun to my head. But I believe that love should be tied together. Run into the ocean in the worst of weather. Left there to drown, left there to drown in their innocence. I would have to tell you that my three favorite books are Either Or by Soren Kierkegaard, The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton, and of course, The Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Carson McCullers. I think that those three books really capture all of my most sensitive parts, and I think that's phenomenal. The Age of Innocence is one of the most beautifully written things I've ever experienced, with characters that feel somehow so personal to me, like a reflection of me. And that's where we get into what I want this video to primarily be about. This is the first of two different Age of Innocence videos on this channel. In this one, we're going to talk about specific themes, specific symbols used in Wharton's prose, Wharton's characterization. If you want to view this video as spoiler-free, you can do that. I don't think I'm going to get into any spoilers here. Shouldn't have to be worried about spoilers in a book that's over 100 years old, but hey, if it makes you feel more comfortable watching this video, maybe you haven't read it yet, maybe you're not sold on it somehow, then you're safe here. No spoilers. The next video will probably have a healthy dose of spoileriness. This video is mostly going to be about the intoxication that I felt experiencing this book. The intoxication I felt reading The Age of Innocence. That's really what this video is going to be most lovingly dedicated to. Now, Edith Wharton is so kind that within the first 50 pages, she provides us with a skeleton key, the way to properly read this entire book, which is invaluable. In reality, they all lived in a kind of hieroglyphic world, where the real thing was never said or done or even thought, but only represented by a set of arbitrary signs. All right, you ready, folks? Get on your swim trunks, get on your bikinis, your bathing suits. Let's dive right the fuck in. Deep end, baby. Rapid fire. Let's fucking do this shit. Okay, I'm ready. Are you ready? Fuck. The Age of Innocence is a study, a beautifully intoxicating, and I would say erotic study, surprisingly erotic study, of objectification and desire. And I mean objectification. Orphaned objects, these characters, by their own admission, they admit that they live in a hieroglyphic world. Newland Archer, May Welland, live in a world full of orphaned objects. The three pillars of this love triangle that makes this book so intoxicating, have such a delirious effect upon me. They are all dominated by strict social codes, and those social codes are choreographed through hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics of class, hieroglyphics of romance, hieroglyphics of stature, hieroglyphics of eroticism, hieroglyphics of society with a capital S. And it's so heartbreaking seeing characters like Newland Archer try to liberate himself from this confinement, this symbolic confinement of hieroglyphic behavior, of objects, of orphaned objects, because he tries to project what he really wants, his desires, his passions, onto objects, while the social environment itself restricts authentic human connection in favor of contrived objectification, contrived choreography. The very setting that these objects are placed within, these objects of hieroglyphic importance, acts as a barrier to the true tonality, the true lyricism, the true rhythmic sensuality of Archer's passions. This is a book focused on tactile details, brushing of the hand, a woman's Countess Olenska's fan just grazing the side of your leg as you sit down next to her is so erotic, so full of an intoxicating amount of desire. The truth within these orphaned objects, the truth, the true passion within these hieroglyphic movements, within the hieroglyphics themselves, within the symbols of the society, is trying to break loose, trying to break free. And you can feel it. You can feel it in your bloodstream as you read this book. But everything is objectified. Meaning is objectified within many different objects. Even God would be objectified in this society, treated as a fashion accessory by fashion victims, symbolizing in reality a profound absence of divinity or truth within this high society setting, within the Gilded Age. And I think the Age of Innocence works viscerally because we all have a visceral, guttural, deep, bitter longing for nostalgia or for a perceived lost authenticity. Now, that lost authenticity could be to eras themselves, or we can find ourselves nostalgic for lost authenticity uh, for our own lives. Like, do you ever find yourself wishing you could go back to an era that felt more true, more truly authentic? That some form of authenticity has been lost as you've matured. And that lost authenticity can often keep you up at night because you harbor a broken heart for lost authenticity. I think we still continue to live in a hieroglyphic world, this same hieroglyphic world that Edith Wharton so beautifully shows us in The Age of Innocence. I think we're all fashion victims, largely. The Age of Innocence is about the unbelievable sadness of fashion victims in love. Even characters like May Welland are portrayed antagonistically because by playing her part beautifully, she must limit and restrict Newland Archer's freedom and passions. May, by behaving as a deliberate gatekeeper of social conventions, social norms, and certainly social expectations, keeps Newland from experiencing a true choice. Newland, Countess Ellen Olenska, May, they've all been victimized by hieroglyphics, by high society, by fashion, and by their own hearts. What exactly do I mean when I say that this book is for fashion victims and most of us are fashion victims? It means we've made some terrible faux pas. It's a book of violent faux pas and delusions of grandeur. Now, the violence is internal. The violence is the violence of a flawed performance of social expectation. The way that we are all fashion victims is that there have been faux pas, there have been restrictions placed upon us from our social environments that have prohibited us from experiencing true choice. Now, those true choices could be romantic, they could be political, they could just be interpersonal in some sort of capacity. But we have made some sort of blunder within our own hieroglyphic universes that has prohibited us from experiencing true choice, true freedom, and true faith. We have been, still to this day, we have been dominated by orphaned objects that we, without knowing any better, project so much meaning onto. And then when those objects gather enough meaning to become heartbreaking, intoxicating reminders of your own victimization, those objects stop being objects of warmth and start to objectify you back. That's how we're fashion victims. And that's how this is the true poetry, the true tragicomedy, the true tragedy of the fashion victim. And I think, yes, we are all fashion victims. I love Edith Wharton's prose. I love her characters more than anything. Newland, May, Ellen Olenska. I'm obsessed with them. Like, I see so much of myself within all three of them. I see so much of people I used to love deeply in both May and Ellen Olenska. I see so many of my mistakes within Newland. I see so much of what I want within both May and Olenska as well. I see my desires. And then I realize that I'm also living in a world of orphaned objects still. Even while I'm reading this book, I am placing so much meaning onto this here object, this here collection of intoxicating hieroglyphics, because that's what this book is as well. But this book is also trying to liberate me from my hieroglyphic confinement and show me that true choice requires true renouncement, requires truly disowning the impeccable fabric that ties all high societies, all subcultures together. And there's a certain amount of existential, inescapable dread to that, an existential inescapability to that entire process. No matter where you go, the spectacle will follow as life has become replaced by a series of representations. And what are representations if not modern hieroglyphics? So yes, this video is primarily about the philosophy of the Age of Innocence, and which isn't even to say anything about the politics, right? You can transfer everything I've said philosophically in this video onto political machinations, onto the political machine that is present within the Age of Innocence, that is feminist in nature, that is, although it's a book about a nearly tyrannical devotion to conformity, at its heart, it's very clearly a book that is nonconformist in spirit, in essence. So we're getting a lot of political things from this book as well. A lot of great political statements that are made in favor of nonconformity. That takes an honest look at nostalgia, and often through a feminist lens, tells the reader that captivity is different for everyone. There's girlhood in captivity. There's love in captivity. There's the misfit in captivity. There's the conformist in captivity. There's always captivity. In fact, our hearts are being held captive by our bodies, but our soul is obviously held captive by our hearts. What the Age of Innocence shows us is a love triangle in captivity, romance in captivity. And from that, we can certainly transpose so much political theory and so much philosophy onto these characters in this scenario. And I think it's easily one of the most beautiful books that I have ever read. Like, I am in love with both May Welland and Countess Ellen Olenska. I'm in love with both of them rather equally, which I think is actually saying a lot about me, a lot about what I secretly desire, which doesn't happen to be the erotic nonconformity of the Countess, but there's something about May that I find so secure. So the security of the fascist upbringing of high society is something that, yes, I guess I do find sensual, or at least responsible. And that's largely because I've been such an extreme anti-conformist my entire life. I think most people read this book and are entirely intoxicated by Ellen Olenska. I read it and I'm intoxicated by the prima ballerina fashionista May Welland. Like, that's who intoxicates me so much. You know, it's impossible not to be obsessed with the Countess, but I am shocked by how much I desired May Welland, how much I desired to be confined to her hieroglyphic universe, because her hieroglyphic universe has almost become a religion, and it hasn't let her down yet. And there are certain social rites, there are certain incantations, there's choreography one must perform in order to keep the illusion of high society alive, of the Gilded Age thriving. vibrant and dynamic. That's how I see May Welland's interpretation of ultra conformity. And is she a fashion victim too? Yes, but she's being victimized by the liberation that Newland is searching for, by the forbidden lust and desire that Newland and the Countess feel for each other. She's being victimized by true liberation. So, like, from her perspective, which is the perspective of ultra conformity, like, if this is a world of hieroglyphics, May Welland is the pharaoh. And I love how romantic that sounds, because it should sound that romantic. It really should. That's awesome. She's being, like, imagine it from her view. The man she's supposed to marry and her cousin are challenging the world that formed her, that shaped her, are challenging, I'm pretty sure, what she assumes to be like the bedrock of not just high society or society with a capital S, but lowercase society itself. So, like, it's such a well-rounded and dynamic romantic book that even someone like May Welland is opening my eyes to the heartbreak of the conformist and the beauty of the conformist, and dare I say, the sexiness of the conformist as well. There's so much within this book that I find absolutely breathtaking, and the most accurate word that I can describe, that I could use to describe how I felt while reading this, was intoxicated. This book is intoxicating. That's fucking brilliant. Edith Wharton, I was unfamiliar with your game. Forgive me. You are fucking goated. Fuck, man. In the next video, we'll probably be discussing the, I guess, more spoiler topics. So plot points, the movements of the plot, which I do love the actual movements of the plot. It does feel like a ballet or like an opera, since we enter the story operatically, literally at an opera. And I feel like there is a part of this narrative that is structured like an opera or like a ballet, as if it were on a stage, because it is on a stage, because these are all choreographed movements determined by social environments full of hieroglyphics. That's exactly what this book is. So in the next video, I'll spend a lot of time doing character studies of Newland Archer, of May Welland, and of Countess Ellen Olenska. And I'm going to have a lot of fun doing it, because this book has completely blown my mind, changed my life, and gave me just so much to think about, and an endless amount of things to think about. Using the language that I love most to do it, which is, I do like these stories of high society, of especially books written about ages that didn't last. My favorite film of all time is Metropolitan by Whit Stillman. I would recommend everyone who likes the Age of Innocence, for reasons that I talked about in this video, to go watch that film. It's my favorite film ever made. You should definitely go watch it. So I'm already, like, preconditioned to love a book like this. And I have seen the Scorsese film, and I thought it was okay. The book is a million times better, okay? Scorsese was kind of out of his element here, even though it's one of the hottest casts you could ever find. Winona Ryder, Michelle Pfeiffer, Daniel Day-Lewis. I do love that. Trust me, I do. The book is just 10 times better, a million times better. Actually, they're incomparable. You can't compare the two, because the book is actual poetry, intoxicating poetry, and I loved it so much. So I will see you here again, same time, same place. Yo, 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 yo. Meet me here a little bit after 5 for part 2 of my study, my analysis, my takes on The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. Thank you so much for watching me. Bye for now.